A dinner, a betrayal, a single shot that shattered Australia's underworld. What if the most feared gangsters in Melbourne sat down for peace, but one walked into his own execution? In tonight's Crime Cipher, we uncover the real story behind the Porcella hit, the assassination that didn't just end a life, it started a war. On August 23, 2003, a single gunshot at Porcella restaurant changed the course of Australia's criminal history. The Carlton Crew, once untouchable, was about to implode from within. You're watching Crime Cipher, where the shadows of crime get dragged into the light. Subscribe now if you believe every unsolved hit deserves a second look. We don't just tell stories, we reveal what others won't. In tonight's Crime Cipher, we break down the deadly betrayal, the rise and fall of a Mafia empire, and how one man's death became the fuse that lit a Gangland explosion. If you think true crime is just about murder, think again. This one's about power, deception, and the war no one saw coming. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stick around, because this story goes deeper than headlines ever dared. The rise of the Carlton Crew and the calm before the storm. By the late 1990s, the Carlton Crew had evolved from a small-time extortion racket into a full-blown mafia network ruling Melbourne's underworld. They ran drugs, shook down nightclubs, and laundered money like clockwork. Key players like Mick Gatto, Tony Mokbel, and Benji Veniamin became household names in the criminal underworld, each one feared for different reasons. Gatto for diplomacy backed with muscle, Mokbel for financial genius, and Benji for cold-blooded enforcement. But behind the facade of unity, rivalries brewed. Benji's unpredictable violence began to clash with Gatto's old-school values. Tony Mokbel was more interested in building his own empire, often funding enemies and friends alike. What looked like a unified mob was, in truth, a fragile alliance built on paranoia and backdoor deals. Origins of blood, the crew's criminal roots, and growing tensions. The Carlton Crew's foundation was built on heroin smuggling, bookmaking, and violent intimidation. Their rise coincided with a brutal era of gangland feuds in Melbourne, as they fought for control against other groups, like the Williams Syndicate. From car bombings to point-blank hits, the city saw blood flow like never before. Associations with outlaw motorcycle gangs only escalated their reach and their conflicts. Police surveillance caught whispers of betrayal, with contracts being placed on allies turned threats. Every nightclub shooting or drug sting hinted at something bigger, brewing beneath the surface. The Porcella shootout, a dinner disguised as diplomacy. August 23, 2003. Porcella, a popular Italian restaurant in Carlton. Gatto, Benji, and other key figures sat down under the pretense of peace talks. But this wasn't diplomacy. It was a chessboard. Witnesses would later say Benji looked nervous, like a man who knew the end might be near. As food was served and drinks poured, an unknown gunman entered. A single shot was fired. Benji Veniamin collapsed to the floor. Some say it was Mick Gatto himself. Others claim it was an inside job, ordered from above. Either way, the message was clear. No one was safe, not even enforcers with blood on their hands. Who really pulled the trigger? Suspects emerged like shadows. Carlton, Zito, even whispers of Williams' involvement. Police sources suggested it was an inside hit, a sanctioned execution for Benji's increasing instability. But no one could say for sure. One criminal-turned-witness later revealed it was a setup. He was walking into a trap. Everyone knew it except him. The silence from the rest of the crew spoke volumes. Loyalty meant nothing once bullets started flying. The real killer may never be known, but the crew's power cracked the moment that trigger was pulled. The strange calm after the kill. Following Veniamin's assassination, Melbourne streets went quiet, but it wasn't peace, it was fear. Insiders say Gatto's release sent a chilling message. Power could still walk free. Old enemies went into hiding. Some fled the country, others were buried without headlines. The real war had gone underground. Wiretaps fell silent. Meetings moved into coded texts and backrooms. Police noticed a drop in public violence, but that only meant one thing. The underworld was regrouping, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. Ripples across the underworld. The power vacuum unleashed. Benji's death didn't end the violence, it invited more. Rival crews began clawing at the crew's territory. Properties were firebombed, stash houses raided, and police struggled to track the retaliation. One lieutenant after another vanished. Some to prison, others to graves. It wasn't just about vengeance, it was about territory, ego, and the rush to seize what was left of the Carlton Crew's empire. In the void, new players rose, Carl Williams among them, ready to rewrite the rules of Melbourne's criminal future. But for the families? The war never ended. Some still don't know who ordered their loved one's death. Others live in silence, afraid that speaking out might reopen old wounds, or worse, make new enemies. The Carlton Crew may have fractured, but its ghost still looms in every unsolved drive-by, every redacted police report, every quiet funeral that never made the news. What's more chilling? The knowledge that some of these players aren't just free, they're thriving. Business suits replaced prison jumpsuits. New alliances formed under the radar. And the streets. They remember everything. Profiles of power. Gatto, Mokbel, and the collapse. Mick Gatto remained a public figure, even appearing in interviews and speaking at events. His reputation as a survivor only grew. Tony Mokbel, meanwhile, went from drug financier to international fugitive, fleeing to Greece before being captured and extradited. The Carlton Crew's remaining leadership either retired into obscurity or were picked off one by one. What once felt like an unstoppable mob now looked like a collection of ghosts, haunted by past decisions and unfinished business. Law enforcement's response and final moves. Victoria Police ramped up efforts between 2003 and 2006, reforming their anti-gang units and cracking down on organized crime. Dozens of raids occurred, but few led to lasting convictions. Even now, many believe the real masterminds behind the violence walked free, shielded by silence and fear. Retired detectives later admitted, "We were always 2 steps behind." The Carlton Crew wasn't just a gang, it was a machine. And it was falling apart faster than we could document it. Legacy of the La Porcella hit. Even today, the name La Porcella evokes a chill. That night became more than a murder. It was a symbol of the Mafia unraveling, the betrayal, the silence, the war that followed. It all started with that dinner. Some call it the end of the old Melbourne underworld. Others call it the beginning of something far more chaotic. Carl Williams would later rise from that same vacuum. The Carlton Crew faded, but their shadow never did. And every unsolved shooting that followed still echoes that single shot fired at La Porcella. The Carlton Crew's story isn't just about gangsters and guns. It's about what happens when power eats itself. It's about secrets buried behind dinner tables and handshakes that sign death warrants. If this episode had your jaw clenched, hit that like button to support more fearless deep dives like this. Subscribe to Crime Cipher and join thousands uncovering what really happened behind gangland headlines.